The Sichi is in look at the Sichis Chelik Tesvov, Sicha Dalet to Parshas Chayei. In Posek Vayesef Avram Vayikach Isha Shmo Ketura, the Posek where it says Avram added, and he took a wife, and her name was Ketura. Is Rasha Mefarish? Rasha explains Ketura Zu Hagar. That's Ketura is Hagar. We know that he had a wife Hagar before she was the maid of Sarah, and she gave Hagar as a wife to Avram because she didn't have any children. And then it says that Avram sent her away together with Yishmael because Yishmael wasn't behaving properly, and Sarah asked him to send away, and he sent her the child away together with his mother. But now it says, when it says that he added and he took a wife, her name was Ketura, so Rashi, this is Hagar. In other words, he took Hagar back. Ketura, why is he called Ketura? Al Shem, because the word Ketura means that her behavior, her maisim, her actions are nice, like Keteris. Keteris is something very special. He brought Keteris in the Beis Hamikdash to Hashem, and she behaved like Keteris, so she's called Ketura. And Shekishra Pischel, and also Keteris, the word Ketura comes from the word to make a knot. Keteris means a knot also. Ketura means to knot. She closed up, she sealed up, she locked, she knotted up her opening, that she did not live with another man from the day she had separated from Avram. That's the Rashi. So the Rebbe said, we have to understand, what's the hechrech from Shuta Shemikras Keteris Hagar? What's the hechrech? What forces us, in simple pshat, to say that Ketura is Hagar? We know that anything that Rashi says, the way the Rebbe learns, is because that's muchrach from Pshuta Shel Mikra. That's the Pshuta Shel Mikra directs to say that pshat. Because a Medrash says it, or the Gemara says it, there's not a reason why Rashi should bring it, because Rashi writes Derech HaPshat. The Gemara is a different Derech, this is Derech HaPshat. So in Pshuta Shel Mikra, what's the hechra? What forces Rashi to say that Ketura is Hagar? Adarabba, the contrary, from Pashtas Loshen HaKosav, Vayesef Avram Vayikach Isha Shmo Geimet. If you look at the simple words of the pasuk, it says Avram added, and he took a wife. Her name was whatever. Is mashme as Vayikach Isha mean do anay lekichas Isha. As mashme, it seems that he took, it's a new taking of a wife, a new marriage. V'neisev to the Friedike, in addition to the ones from before. The Afrek Taki Medrash, as the Medrash Taka asks, because the Medrash also says that this was Hagar. And the Medrash asks, so Ksiva Yosef, how could you say it's Hagar? Hagar was married before. Why does it say Vayesef? In other words, from the word Vayesef, we see from the Medrash, Vayesef Avram, and he took a wife, this wife seems in addition to before. But if it's Hagar, it's not in addition to before. So what forces Rashi to say different than the simple meaning of the words that he took a wife in addition to the one before, which was Hagar? What forces Rashi to say that this itself, Ketura itself, is Hagar? That's one question. Second question. For them, was Rashi sagt im zweiten Teil mit Avov Achibur. Since Rashi says the second reason why she's called Ketura with a Vav Achibur means a Vav that connects, which means equivalent to in English, you would say and. So Rashi says like this. After he writes, V'nikratz Ketura Hashem Shenoim Asay Keteris, first he writes that this is Hagar, and she's called Ketura because her maisim was nice, pleasant, like Keteris. Rashi adds, says, Visha Kosher Pischa, and because she tied up her Pesach and didn't go to another man. Rashi doesn't say another pshat, because simply you could learn that Rashi is telling us two pshat and why she's called Ketura. One is because she behaved like Keteris, and a separate reason, another reason is because Kosher Pischa, she tied her Pesach. But then Rashi would say Dover Acher or some other lotion which would show that it's another pshat. Rashi doesn't do that. Rashi just says she's called Ketura because the Maisa Keteris, and is moving for that we understand, as Rashi learned that this is not zwei besondere Pirushim wie Medrash. In Medrash, this is like two separate pshatim. One pshat why she be called Ketura because she was like Keteris. Another pshat, separate pshat, is because she tied herself and had never went to another man since she left Avram. But Rashi makes it into two not separate Pirushim. Favos Nikras Ketura, why she's called Ketura, nor zwei timim in ein Pirush. Two reasons in one pshat. In other words, Rashi is giving two pratim in one pshat. Das heißt, the name Ketura is meramas of debate uptaichen zusammen. That the name Ketura hints for both of these things together. Loshen Keteris, from the word of Keteris, Shenoi Masei Keteris, her behavior was nice like Keteris. Un Loshen Kshira, from the word of not, tying, Shekosher Pischa, Shetayder Pesach, and it goes together. It's not two pshatim. It's one pshat, that the Pasuk is Ramas for these two. Davon verstehen, we have to understand. From one of them, Rasha, the Pshuta Shemikro, where does Rasha take it from? Simple Pshat of the Pasuk, and Moti Gerufen K'tura till the second time. They call it K'tura because of two reasons. Not being Medesh, and not like the Medesh who says it's two separate Pirushim. The third Kasha, Gimel, the Kushas Amaforshim, the obvious Kasha of the old, a lot of Maforshim ask. Even Pasuk, on the earlier Pasuk, which says Vatela Fatesa, after says that Avram sent away Hagar with Ishmael, and it says Vatela Fatesa Midbar, she went, and Vatela means she went. Fatesa means she got lost. So Zokt Rashi said, what does it mean? Chosra Ligiluda Beisavia. Vatesa means she got, so to speak, lost. Not the Gashmis that she got lost on the way. She got lost in her derech. That she went back to the Aveda Zorah that she was used to in her father's home. She was the daughter of Pare. So the Pasuk says she went back to the Aveda Zorah of her father. How does Rasha say here that her Maisim was like Teres when it says in the other Rasha that when she left him, she left Avram, she went back to Aveda Zorah. So obviously she wasn't like Teres. So the Rebbe had the beer and them the explanation is like this. Dos was his Machriach Rasha to Zon K'tura to Hagar. This that forces Rashi to say that Keturah is Hagar is Akasha, not in them protesting Posik. Is Akasha not because of something that's written in this Posik. Because Rabbi, if you look at this Posik itself, as the Rebbe said before, is more mashma that it's a different woman, not the same one from before. So the reason Rashi says it is not because of Akasha in this specific Posik, nor in them close they can see from Avram and Hagar. If you look at the general picture of the story of Avram and Hagar, you see that you have to say this. Why? Rashi had free and mefanish given. Rashi had explained before, and the Rebbe is medayik, the word freer, before it makes it in italics, because a word that's written in the Sikh in italics means that this is mutkish. The Rebbe is stressing it. So Rashi already said it. Had it been written in Rashi later, you couldn't say what the Rebbe is going to say. Because Rashi wrote it before, and we know that the Rebbe learns that everything that was written in Rashi, the one that's learning any posik, remembers what it said before. Rashi is written for a ben chomesh lemikra that has a good head and remembers. So Rashi already wrote before it. Mefarish ben as Avram megayeres ho anoshim v'soro megayeres hanoshim. Avram was megayer the men and Sora was megayer the women. Now, what does it mean he was megayer? So Rashi says it doesn't mean, and we did have explains in different sikh. It doesn't mean megayer. There was no yidden then to say he was converted them, but it means he brought them tachas kanfei ashchina. So Avram was able to convince the men to behave the way the Eibishter wants of them. And Sarah was able to do it to the woman. So if Avram was able to be mashpia outside people, not part of his family, outside people, so certainly he had an influence on the members of his household. Yishmael was Tarbesro, means on Yishmael also. Even though Yishmael went to Tarbesro, he went off the derech, but the Rabbi Tshuva getom noch b'chai Avram. As Rashi says, he did tshuva while Avram was alive. So we see that Avram had the power of being mashpia people not to behave bad. And not only that, from Yishmael we see that even it turned out that somebody did behave bad, Avram had the power, the kayach, of being mashpia on them that they should turn back to do tshuva. We see that. Shelter the Shaila. So the Gemara, so the Shaila is here. How could it be that Hagar went back to the Avodah Zarah of her father when Avram didn't give it as his tshuva? And Avram didn't cause her to do tshuva, didn't influence her to do tshuva. Avram had that power on others, certainly on his household, like we said by Yishmael. And even though Yishmael Taka went away, but Avram had the care to bring him back. So why didn't he bring back Hagar? In other words, like this, we're learning the pshat the way the Rebbe learns here, that when the pasuk says, where Rashi explained Vatelech Vatesa, that she went back to Gedula Aviyah, that Taka happened. Taka happened, like the Summer Portion say it happened, but she did tshuva later. So before Rashi explains this, Tamaze, if you learn just the fact that Rashi in the previous pasuk, that she went back to the Avodah Zarah, till we get to the pasuk we're learning now, so the whole time is bothering. If someone is learning the psukim, has no answer. He learned that she went to Avodah Zarah and doesn't say anything that she did tshuva. Why couldn't Avram make her do tshuva? We can't sagen that she the far was Hagar to gefunden berichut makam and Avram, and can't say because she already left Avram, so she was far away from Avram. When we had fear gelernt, as Avram had here mit Yishmael na weggeschickt mit Beisi, we learned before that Avram sent her and Yishmael away. So maybe she was far from Avram, so Avram didn't influence. Avram influenced people who were close. Weil bei der Maisa Akeda ist ein Bottle geworden, der Matze von Gottes Shoma, so ist das benannt. Because already by the Akeda, this that he sent her away was already bottled, sent her away because the Rasha Taj and Posik, he took to the Norav along with him. Who were they? Yishmael and Eliezer. So Yishmael was back to Avram already at the time of the Akeda, which is much more before this time. And this is about Yishmael. How do you know about Hagar at Hagar? So we see that Yishmael was already close to Avram. So you can't answer that Hagar was far away because Yishmael, we know, was already close to Avram at this time. Und in Pashtas hat sich Hagar gefunden zusammen mit Yishmael. And in Pashtas, she was together with Yishmael. And actually, in Orah 22, the Rebbe says, in Vayera, it says, Vatikach le'ime Yisha, that when Yishmael got married, his mother took a wife for him. So his mother was with him. So if Yishmael was already at this time back close to Avram, so Hagar was also. So if she was close to Avram, and Avram had power to be mashpi on people to the tshuva. So what was it mashpi on the people to the tshuva? So Take, she went back to Avodah Zarah. And why don't we find that she did? Why didn't Avram pay to the tshuva? The Keturah is Hagar, and she's called Keturah because my son Noam Keteres means that's Einoch Hanam, true. The Honru von Hagar with Noam Keturah main the pasuk Zimran Einoch Hanam. This is what the pasuk says, that the calls are Hagar to be meramas, to hint to us as each son is Shenoy my son Keteres, that now her maisim are like Keteres. So the Rebbe learns as far as the answer to the contradiction, that there it says she went back to the Avodah Zarah, and here it says she was, her maisim were nice aktedas. The answer to that is very simple. This was when she left, and now when she came back, she already became better. That we learned. But the reason Rasha says it is because this answers a kasha that's bothered the Ben Chomesh Lemika, the one that's learning the psukim. He learned before about Hagar. Hagar was bad. He learned before that Avraham was able to mashpia people to do tshuva. So right away, it's bothering them the whole time. He's looking for an answer. By the time you get to this point, you're still looking for an answer. Why did Hagar not do tshuva? Enoch she did Avodah Zarah. She left Avraham and did Avodah Zarah. So why didn't she do tshuva? So Rasha comes here and says, yes, the pasuk is telling Shetaka did tshuva. Avraham was mashpia on her to do tshuva. So that's what the pasuk is telling us. Why she called her, by calling her the name Keturah, is to teach us that this is the same Hagar and Shetaka did tshuva. And that's why now her maisim were like Teiras. The meat is meduyik, a very gewaltige diuk the Rebbe makes here. Is meduyik v'gayum tegloshen Rasha Keturah zu Hagar. This makes it clear, meduyik, and it makes it much geschmacker. Why Rasha uses the loshen Keturah zu Hagar, not he Hagar. Not saying she was Hagar. This is Hagar, not she was Hagar. Al derech loshen hakosa he chevrin keitzav. Another pasuk says this kiryas arba he chevrin. So it should say here also Keturah. So Rasha should have said he Hagar. Rasha says zu Hagar. What's the difference? So the Rebbe explains he Hagar a loshen nister. Who would say he Hagar? He is she. She is somebody talking about somebody outside of here. We're talking about somebody. Somebody all of a sudden we're saying, want to know who this is? I'm telling you that her name was she was Hagar. So Hagar is not part of what we're involved in. It's a loshenist, that loshenistim is a hidden thing. It's a person who's outside. So if it would say he Hagar, well, it wouldn't mean adoba deep sukim red kenenit begnova. In time we get to this, but no one's talking about Hagar. These v'einer was his nist. There's something hidden that means outside, and we're just telling you who Keturah is, who is Hagar. Then Zokta aber zu Hagar meint as Hagar is l'neichach. Zu means here. It's l'neichach means right in front of you. That means the ben chomesh halt in ein tainen. The one that's learning the chumash keeps on taining until now. From then, when he learned about Avraham was Megayer, and then he learned Hagar did Avodah Zarah, right away comes a question that's still in his mind, and he's bothered by this question the whole time. Was tut sich mit Hagar? What's doing with Hagar? For was gefindt is all tshuva? Why don't we find to do tshuva? So we're talking about Hagar the whole time. Ki'ilu. It's not figuratively every moment we're discussing Hagar, but that question about Hagar is always in the mind. When the person learns the Chumash, is always in his mind. Where do we find an answer to this question? When the Leib is Rashi Medayik, Zu Hagar. The Hagar that you're talking about, that's it. That's what the Torah is telling us. We're talking about that Hagar that you're worried about. Was du hast gefragt und gerät besitz that you were talking about till now. This is Keturah, which means you were wondering why, when she went back to Avodah Zarah, why doesn't Avraham do anything about it? Or why don't we find Avraham made the tshuva? So finally you got the answer. Hagar, you're worried about Hagar, and here you have it, Zu Hagar. Yeah, this is it. This is the Hagar that we're talking about. So that forced Rashi to say the Ketura is Hoger. The question was, what made him say? Because there's a question that's bothered in Pshuta Shel Mikra, not on this Posik Mamish, but Bechlal. And here we found an answer. We found an opportunity to explain an answer. And if you're going to say that Ketura is Hoger, that answers the question. So in Pshuta Shel Mikra, if you have a question and this Posik could be learned in a way that the question is answered, so that's how we learn. So that is Machriach Rashi to say that Ketura is Hoger. First question was, what made Rashi Ketura is Hoger? Actually, from the Lashon is Mashman, it's by Yosef, it's in addition, somebody else. But then the question will be answered, and here we won't find an answer to that question. And if this is the posik that could give you an answer to the question of Pshuta Shel Mikra, that's how we learn. Rashi but Rashi can't be satisfied just with this reason itself. That's why Rashi has to add not a new reason, but to give another kvetch, another prat in this answer. While emes tak azitz is noy mesekek teiras. Taka true. Now she the tshuva and b'meilish her meisim are mamish like teiras. Since there was a time that she went back to the Avodah Zarah of her father's home, but Avram Avinu was given atzanu betachlis. Avram Avinu was his tznius, was mamish to the extreme. He would not have taken her for a wife. If she would have been with another man in between, it wouldn't fit to the tznius of Avram Avinu. Der Posik war Yosef Avrom gamer. Kum bald noch ein Posik war Yeviyah Yitzchak Asor Imei. This Posik comes right after the Posik where it says that Yitzchak brought Rivka home to the tent of his mother Sarah. For Sai Sarah, Sai Rivka is ein Gewinn Tznuis Betachlis. Rivka and Sarah were Mamash Betachlis Hatznias. So they fit to be wives of the Ovis, a wife of Yitzchak, a wife of Avrom. But she who went to do Avodah Zarah, which we would assume, so she went and was not sneezdik anymore, and she was with other men, that wouldn't fit for Avram to take her as a wife. So if you're going, even though you're going to tell me that Ketura is Hoger, which means that she did tshuva, but that fact that just the fact that she did tshuva is not enough to explain why he took her for a wife. So of course, he wouldn't have taken her. Yeah, this goes together. The Ketura teaches something else. As in dem Nomen Ketura is Eich Merum is das was is Dafka Lodem Yem Shapir Shem Avram. The word Ketura also hints not only that she was good now and she did tshuva, but she closed herself from any other man from when she left Avram. And the Rebbe is Avram, so she fit that Avram should take her. So by saying Ketura Zehogar answers the kasha of why she didn't do tshuva, because she did the tshuva, and she did such a tshuva, and besides doing tshuva, she also was never with another man. But Mele, we understand why Avram took her. Apia nalas mit nomen Ketura is a posik meramas as Hogar to Avram sashpo tshuva geton. Based on this answers basically the kashas that we had before, but based on this, that her name Ketura, the posik is meramas that Hogar through Avram did tshuva. So we can be masber al pichsidis etliche protim in posik. Some details in this posik there are things that's not so simple in this posik, not in Pshuta Shel Mikra, but al pichsidis it's not so poshet. And the Rebbe will explain in connection to what we said before the details in this posik al pichsidis. What are the problems of this posik? The questions. Number one. This question that we asked before, that the Medrash asks, if Ketura is Hogar, so what does the posik mean by Yosef Avram, as we asked before? That Avram added and took a wife, when it's not an addition, it's the same one. Now, l'chura, this is Akash al Pipshat. The Rebbe is saying he's going to answer now Shaila that's only a Shaila al Pi Nimis and Yonim. L'chura, this is Akash al Pipshat. Why does it fit to Yosef? So the Rebbe says, al derech Pshat is nikin kashem. Pshat is not a kashem. Al chosh as Ketura is a Hogar. Even the Ketura is the same one that's Hogar. By Avram and given anaya lekiche. It is a new taking. Pastor them the Loshen Vayesef. You could say he added a new wife. He added a new taking, a new marriage, let's call it. Unochmer, go even more. The Baldfrier is when she was there by Avram the first time, she was loved up a regular wife. She was a shivcha. And he was allowed to be with her, whatever, but she was a shivcha. Oh, that's why Yosef. Now it's something he added to her, the same person, but before she was a shivcha. Now he added. That's why Yikach. He took her as a wife. Al Kapone via Pilegish. Maybe it wasn't a regular wife, but it's similar to a Pilegish. In them Eifen, and what kind of Pilegish? A Pilegish is not a regular wife, but she also a shtickle wife. According to the way that it says, that Rashi says in a different place, Noshim b'ksube, a regular wife, you give a ksube. Pilakshim menit was b'le ksube. Pilakshim don't have a ksube. But it seems from Rashi, when the Rebbe explains in another sicha, that they're regular wives. Some places it says, other places, that a pilegesh is without kedushin. Not doesn't say that. Rashi says a regular wife has a ksube, and the pilegesh doesn't have a ksube. Is mashma besides the ksube, they're the same. So B'meila, even if she was a pilegesh, she was now married, different than before, which she was just a shivcha. He says B'meila ninya from vayesif in the kichasisha. So it's called, he added, in the taking of a wife. So l'chura al pipshat, it's no kasha. But the Rebbe said he's going to answer this kasha al pipnimis inyoni, because al pipnimis vetober the loshen vayesif I noch mer meduik unglatik leiten bira pipnimis inyoni. So he says, I'm not going to answer a kasha. It's not a kasha, but if you explain the inyan al pirsidis, this will add even to make the shmakya to understand why the pasuk says vayesif. But basically the kasha is, why does it say vayesif? Vayesif Avrom. Second kasha, if I was knowing myself, and Hagar Marum is the vergleich mit Keteiras Dafkid. Keteiras wants to tell us that she behaved properly. Why connect it to Keteiras Dafkid? Why does the name Keturah, which is Meramas for Keteiras, that's the way to describe that she was behaving properly? Why Dafkid to Keteiras? A lot of good things you have. Gimel. Dafkid the Posik was Retzich wegen dem Avrom, dem as Avrom hat genommen. Why does the Torah want to tell you that Hagar did Tshuva? To answer the kasha, why we don't find it. So the Torah tells us, but the Torah tells it to us in connection to Avram marrying her. That's not a kasha in Pshat. That's where the Torah mentions the name. But in Pnimis Zanyonim, everything is meduyik, so it must be some connection to Avram's marrying her. The Beer and them the explanations like this. In Chassidus Mevoyer, the chiluk zwischen der Aveda von Avram, far sein mal sein, and the Aveda was noch them. Find a different Avram before he did Bris Milah, before he circumcised himself, and what his Aderech and Aveda was after that. Kaden Shanimel Otagheisen Avram. Before he was Gemal, his name was Avram. Was meant, it says, see this Avram is made up of two words. Av, Rom. Rom means high. It is der Heben abgetragen for Welt. He was high, he was a very holy person, separated from the world. He's beyond the world. Rom means he's very high. Like the Pasuk says, Rom al kol geim. Rom means, it says, but the word Rom means beyond all the nations of the world, which is beyond the regular teva of the world. Whatever you did was in Kedusha itself to go higher and higher and higher in Kedusha. That's what says in Chassidus on this parsha. But after he circumcised himself, he's called Avraham, which Avraham, the Pasuk says, is Av Hamen Goyim, the father of the groups of Goyim, of all the nations. When there are Tuvkiton in Goyim, what he did was, now he started working that to elevate even the nations, which is part of the world. So he wasn't elevated. He was say just as holy as before, but now his holiness came down that it even had an influence and effect on the nations. When the Aved is given durch Sora, it all came bemis through Sora. Was that from the Goyim Mafred given the Pseilus and Maikem and Zeir Tev and Tzutzes V'Kedusha. In the Maimer in Ha'or 42, or before that, the Rebbe brings the Maimer of Ben Noah, but there it speaks in Ruchnias based on the Gemara that Sora was in Rabbi Barchona's stories. But the word was, it brings out Rayas, we're not going to go into it now, that Sarah had this power, and this is what she did. She separated the good from the bad. Pseilus means the waste the bad, and separated from the good. The good, everything has a nitzutz hakdusha, and she separated the bad, pushed away, and nitzutz hakdusha went up. The Pharisee saw Gorish, that's why she said, she saw Olga the way she and her son were behaving, or mainly Shmuel was behaving. So she said, you got to get rid of it. Take it away, don't mix it with us. Let them go separately. Push away. That was Sarah's work. The Ila was Avram, the Grech noch Ptira Sarah. After Sarah died, now Avram continued with that Aveda, but a little bit different. He met even more. After Sarah died, it says he added, and he took a wife called Keturah. What does that mean? That he made Yishmael and Hagar do tshuva. The Hainu, which means Sarah separated the bad. She sent away Hagar and Yishmael at bad. Came Avraham after Sarah passed away. Now he took over basically her Aveda in a higher level. So what did he do now? He brought her back and he made him do tshuva. So he brought his high madrege, not just being separated from the world. He brought it to have an effect on the world. on the psalus, on the Ra of the world, which is Hagar and Yishmael. The Asbara in them, to explain that, is like this. Their birur in Goyim was a Tzuchukiton durch Sora. This that Sora was able to be Mavara to elevate the nations, which means elevate the Klippa, is not in Klippas Nega. Was his murder from Tevara. We know there's Klippas Nega, which is a mixture of good and bad. Sholosh Klippas Atmeis Lagamra is only bad. She could not work with the bad. Something that's bad is bad. That's it. That has nothing to do with it. Klippas Nega, which has a mixture, her job was the Eif and Abirur is durch Mafra sein Pseilus Vera, to separate the Pseilus, the waste and the bad, and to elevate the good that was there before mixed with the bad. When the Yeh says the Pseilus hot nit contained goli, the Pseilus itself, the Nitzos is taken out, you're left only with the Pseilus, you're left only with the bad. Now the bad has no good in it. Now the Sofkas of everything has good hidden, but the Goli, the Peil, this is called Ra. Darfan is the Ribedecha, Zain Gorish. So the way she works, she took Klippas Nega and separated the bad from the good. The good became good and then had an aliyah, and the bad, good didn't become good, it's good the whole time, now it has even an aliyah, and the bad is pushed away. God is Shama. But the birur from Yishmael and Hagar, but in Avraham was Mevara, Yishmael and Hagar, is nidroch mailas and them teiv amurit was in zeh. Not only just to take out the good and elevate the good, but by zeh is nitok and teiv goli. They're klippet, sholish klippes atmeis, and it's only bad. So what should be the choice? Push it away. No, Avraham didn't do that. No, it says abirur b'derech heisofer. He made a new thing. He's adding something new. Al derech zdenis naslik yochziv, and you do tshuva, the avedas turn into mitzvahs. So there you take, this is showing that you could take the bad, and the bad turns into good. Sora didn't do that. Sora took the good, and the bad she pushed away. But Avraham took the bad itself and was able to affect the bad. Like when you do tshuva, the regular tshuva, when zdenis naslik zochias, that the avedas that you did before, which is bad, turns into mitzvah. The avedas itself is transferred to mitzvah. And that's the ma'ila of Avraham over Sora. So this is what is hinted in the pasuk, that Vayesav Avraham and Vayikach Isha Shmok Torah. He took Torah, which means, as we said before, here the Torah hints that Torah Hagar did Shuvah. This is the Aved of Avraham, and the stack is written in this place because this came right after Sora died. But this is the beer in the Drai Diyukim Delil, the three kashas we asked before. Number one, the question was the Loshen Vayesav Avraham. Yes. Why does it say Vayesav Avraham? He didn't add, he took the same one back. So the answer is because what he did was he changed over, he transformed the pselas, the bad, the waste, to good, which means he took the gimel klippus atmeis, the klippa which is full klippa, and he changed it to good, is an inya from Eisofer. That's something that's added. That's not normal. It's not a regular thing. To be mavara, the good from the bad is something that you have good and bad mixed and you separate them. To change the bad for the good, that's an additional aveda. The Tzedek Taich and Posik, Yosef Hashem Libei Nachar, the Tzedek Taich is when Rochel gave a name Yosef, and she said why? Because Yosef Hashem Libei Nachar, Hashem should add to me another son, but the Tzedek Taich is a little different. Adir Inyan von Yosef, which is Heisofer. Yosef means to add, Idos was mimach as funan acher zaben maben. Ben acher means you take an acher. Acher means somebody else. Acher is like sitra achra. It's the other side. It's klippe, and when you change over the klippe to a ben of David, that's a hisofer. That's something that's addition. When the hisofer is b'shtayim, and when you say that this is an addition which is not regular, not normal, so to speak, there are 2 points here. Number one, in Welt, in the world. Says hisofer b'chidish in the bria. You're adding to the creation. The way the world was created, bad is bad and good is good. Bad cannot become good unless you do something which is beyond the limitations of the bria, of the creation. So that's a sofer in Welt, something in Welt that cannot happen beside the bria. You're adding something, and also in Avram, Vayesav Avram, the post is Vayesav Avram added. This adds something in Avram. This that you should change over from bad to good normally can be. Bad and good are two opposites. Bad cannot become good. So how is it for it possible? The Eibishter, the Etzem of the Eibishter, mitzad the Eibishter, if you connect yourself to the Etzem of the Eibishter, you could do it. What's mitzad Atzmusi is Baruch, mitzad the Etzem of the Eibishter is Beloshna Medesh. Medesh says, in Yedeya Be'ezim Em Chofetz. The Eibishter says, I don't know which one you want. in b'maisa elu, do I want these maisa, meaning my same shel Rishoyim, the Rishoyim, or do I want tzaddikim? And the answer is he wants the tzaddikim. What Mishad Eibush says, I don't know what I want. Tzaddikim or Rishoyim. That means that in the level by the Eibush himself, whatever a person does makes no difference. Be'etzem. He just decided that it should, but be'etzem it makes no difference. So mitzad atzmus, teva and ra are not opposites. The Meile und der Fahr, was is Dane seine dort in Teves Mokum, since the Avedas are not, don't mean anything there, kommt von dort der Keach zu kennen, ich sie im Hapel seiner Sache ist. So there you get the Keach to change the Avedas to mitzvahs. That means they're bad to good. When das is the Pirish Vayesev Avram, we're saying now that the Vayesev, what Avram did, is a Hisof, and not only in Welt, something in Welt happened that's not normal, that's not regular, but in Avram it happened. That means, and durch dem was by Avram is in Tese geworden, a hechere Keach v'darge. Since by Avram now he got, after the Mila, I guess, especially at this point when he married her, there was a new Madrege that he got, a new Keach he got. Was nehmt sich von Atzmus, which comes from the Etzem of the Eibishter. Hat gekannt uftan dem Birer in Hoga v'Yishmol. So he could make the Birer in Hoga and also the Birer in Yishmol. So the first kasha that was asked, why does the Pasuk say V'Yesav Avraham? Because what we're explaining about Al-Pichsidus, what he did, that also is behemshach to what we said before. Behemshach in the Pshuta Shel Mikro, that this Pasuk is telling us that Hoga did tshuva. Avraham caused Hoga to do tshuva. Now that we're saying that's what the Pasuk is telling us, now we understand the words. Because what he did to get Hoga to do tshuva, which means take Klippe and make transformed Klippe into Kedusha, that's Vayesav. That's a Hisofer. Hisofer in Welt and then Hisofer in Avraham. The second question, if you want to say that she was good, why does it compare her to Keteris? Shanoim, I say Keteris, Dafke, why Dafke Keteris? So the answer is, Valderinya from the Yidala Samamona Keteris. When you have the 11 ingredients, herbs that they used in Keteris, is Ki Yidua, was designed in Mahapach, the Yidala of Kisin, the Mesavusat of Kedusha. That this changes the 11 crowns of Klippe, of Tumah to Kedusha. In other words, like this. B'chlal, we know there's Yud Spheres, 10 spheres. 10 spheres in Atzilus, that's in the Elamis, and by a person there's 10. Klippe, it says there's Yud Aleph Kisrin. There's 11. Not to go into the Chassidus explains, one is the Maki, whatever, but there's 11, that's Klippe. Like Kedusha, it says Eser, V'lo Yachad Oser. It's Eser. Klippe, there's Yud Aleph Kisrin and Savuser. There's 11 Kisrin of Klippe. Keteris was made of Yud Aleph Samamonin, had Yud Aleph 11, because it shows that it's Mavarer Klippe. Actually, one of the inyonim in one of the ingredients of Keteris was something treif. And one of them made was the dam, the blood of a treifa bird. And b'chlal, we know in korbanos and things like that, you could only take min amuter befich, only kosher ingredients. You couldn't take treif. And here the Teira b'dafke gave, because the Chassidus explains, and the Rabbi explains in many siches, yin of Teres represents taking away, transforming, not just taking away, transforming the clipping to Kedusha. So that's why it was Yid Aleph, and it had something actually treif in it. So that's the answer. Why Keteres? Because we're trying to show that Avraham Avinu, what he did was Keteres Ketura Zohagar, that he did this. He was Mahapich, the klippe of Hagar into Kedusha. He made her do tshuva because he changed over the klippe to Kedusha. Then it's Nasl Kazochias. That's Keteres. The Meili we say she was like Keteres. The third question is, why does the Torah tell us that she did tshuva, the kesher in connection to Avram's marrying her? He says that tachlis for yikach isha is bechlal, the tachlis, the goal of marrying a wife is pru'urvu, to multiply, to have children. The mere fact of having children is something that's a chiddush. Naturally, without the special kaya that the Eibishter put into the world, this wouldn't happen. It's making from nothing something to be able to create a human being. That's something that's the kaya chatzmus. So that's called a hisof, and we're talking here about the hisofer that Avram Avinu had. He brought to the world, and he had. When the mit is muzmar, but the tshuva from Hagar was yon hisofer canal, and that explains why the tshuva of Hagar, which is, as we said before, is hisofer, because it's adding something that's extra that comes from higher madrege. That nirmes dafke do. That's why it's hinted here with the meduber is wegen vayesev Avram igachisha. When it talks about Avram marrying a wife, but tachlis is gam shechapasha batelad, and she gave birth, because the whole meaning of marrying a wife is to have children. Having children is something that comes from a very high madrege, and that's the there also we see Poshet and Gashmi is a hisofer over the nature of the world. So here we want to tell you that Avram did something which is a hisofer in both in Yonim, as we said before. It tells it us when Avram married her. Now the Rebbe explains based on that there's going to be a Gemara that the Rebbe, a story in Gemara that the Rebbe is going to explain out Chassidus. The Shaykh to the Pasuk is do a Sipur Tamor by Yisrael according to Gemara. In Gemara, is welcome. There's a seemingly a strange story concerning this Pasuk. Vayikach Yosef Avram Vayikach Isha Shmo Ketura. Gemara tells like this: the children of the sister of Rav Tarfon, which means his nephews, were sitting in front of Rav Tarfon, and as Rasha says, they weren't saying anything. They weren't learning, basically. I mean, we say didn't say anything. They were not learning. So Rav Tarfon opened up and said, Rasha says, in order for them to speak, he said, Vayesev Avram, he quoted the Pasuk, Vayesev Avram, Vayikach Isha Shmo Yechni. He wanted to arouse their attention. Bilsim Ba'almo the comment. Rasha says, he just said something, nothing. Just wanted to start a conversation. So he assumed that he's going to say something strange. They're going to wake him up and they'll start talking. I'm relay. So they said to him, like, Ketura, what do you mean by you? Took a wife, her name was Yechni. Her name was Ketura, it says. So he called them B'nai Ketura. Because what they said, called them B'nai Ketura, you're children of Ketura. It's a strange story. Why? Is mitmuk not understood. Number one, why did it tell us the story? The Gemara. Even there's a klal, a rule that the Torah doesn't even speak to embarrass a non-kosher animal. That's why the Torah a lot of times says an animal that's not koher, but doesn't say tmeya, not to embarrass an animal. Certainly not to embarrass the nephews of Reb Tarfon. So why does the Gemara tell us this? There's Torah here. It's Torah. Torah means hira. A lesson. What's the lesson that we take from here? Second question. There are many ways you could make someone speak. You don't have to say a posik and not the way it's written. Twisting a posik is the only way. You only do that. Have no choice. You got to sometimes do that. But Stam, you had all kinds of choices. You could the other way. Why did he do it through twisting a posik? A third kasha. If he wants to just wake him up, you're using Torah for that. Torah used to learn. Torah is holy. You're going to you want to wake someone up, you'll use a pasuk of Torah. It's not nice. The Horah that brings the Gemara Sanhedrin, that if you make a pasuk kimizemer like a song, so the person could pass away early, whatever, but it's not a bad thing. Why did they do that? Number 4, he wanted to change the pasuk and say instead of Shmo Ketura, a different name. Why did he pick the name Yechni? Wouldn't make more sense. He wanted to change the lotion of the pasuk to wake him up, because obviously Chumash they knew, so they would chop right away. It's not the pasuk, and would wake him up. It would start him talking. So he should have said something very close to the truth. She was Hagar, right? So he should have said even though that would be also different than the pasuk. He's over in Teichen akaponim l'reiv adeyes. So akaponim in meaning, according to most opinions, it's true. She was Hagar. When afilu asa chelkin, and even those that argue with the Rebbe before that some hold that it wasn't Hagar. Even the other opinion holds that this opinion is also true. All opinions in Torah are words of Hashem. But the Faratim have gemerkt, bis Hillel magden sein Divrei b'Shamai l'Divrayim. Bis Hillel argued with B'Shamai. Nevertheless, whenever they would quote both opinions, they would first quote B'Shamai. Why? According to them, B'Shamai is wrong. So the Gemara says, because so Bis Hillel knew that B'Shamai's words are holy, are also Torah. And they let him, and they said their words first. So if he would have said Shema Hagar, would have been closer to the pasuk. First of all, many hold that she was Taka Hagar, so it would have been true, not the word of the pasuk, but it would have been true. Even those that hold that it's not, but they also know that there is the truth in the fact that she was Hagar, because there's another opinion which is also Torah. Changing the pasuk, even changing the pasuk just for that, would have been enough to wake him up, to be made at them. So why did he use this? Why did they say Shema Yechni? First, Rebbe explains something that Chazal say, and then we'll bring it back here. Anybody who teaches the son of his friend Torah, the Torah considers it as if he gave birth to him. Why? Because if you learn Torah, you become a new being. The Leib is it's like you gave birth. Just like you give birth, it's a new being. You become you're reborn again. Gamas Loshna Aspastas Aloshin, Kolam Lamed Ben Chavere. Is mashma fil eider ben chaveret shema yidei b'teireh. The lotion is anybody who teaches your friend, someone else Torah. Anybody means whether he learned Torah before or he never learned, and this is the first time he's learning. So l'chura, anytime you learn with someone Torah, even if he's a bit kamut chacham himself, but you're teaching him something as if you gave birth to him. True, because the lotion is kol amalamed is ben chaveret. Is aber kemuven beike ba'azavas is bizitz negiven shachs l'metera. Mainly, word is it by somebody who never learned before. Then you really make something new. If you learn Torah already, as much as every time you learn, there's something extra, something more that gives you, but your Metzias of Torah is there already. But if you never learn, and now the first time learning, now mamash you're doing something new. But if you learn Torah before, it's so the one that's teaching just adding something to what he has already. But if you never learn that you're teaching for the first time, then you talk and make him to Metzias. The meat is verstanden because they were like bring a raya that this is so. This explains the Shina Loshon Pinish Rasha, why Rasha writes a different Loshon on the Posik, the Eile Teldis Aaron and Moshe. Rashi in Amidbar, Posik says these are the children of Aaron and Moshe, and it only mentions the children of Aaron. So Rasha says, because Nikru Teldis Moshe, the children of Aaron are also called children of Moshe, because he taught them Torah. So Melamed, that teaches us Shekola Melamed, anybody who teaches someone Torah, Mailel of Akosov Ki'ilu Yoldi. Torah considers it as if he gave birth to him. So here that Rasha uses the lotion for a klal. Anytime you learn with someone Torah, it's as if you gave birth to him. As if you gave birth to him. Then Benigeya themselves, Aaron's children, the Pasuk says, B'yem diber Hashem es Moshe, nasa eila tel d'shalei. The day Hashem spoke to Moshe, that's when they became his children. Which means, by Bnei Aaron, Zokta the Loshon, nasu eila tel d'shalei. By the children of Aaron themselves, Rashi uses the Loshon, they became his children. Nit nor ki'ilu, not only it's as if he gave birth to them. Mashe'en came, kol ha'malamed, when Rashi uses this to teach you by everybody, is meant was Milo because of Ki'ilu Yoldi. There Rashi has Ki'ilu he gave birth. Why? We're out from there, but why the different Shaloshim? Is that Tambas, the reason is like this. Baldas Bnei Aaron is being Dibra Hashem, by the children of Aaron, is the day Hashem spoke, they started learning from when Hashem spoke to Moshe, and Moshe taught them Torah. So that's the first time they started learning Torah was by Moshe. And he taught them Ashalom and Mepi Agvura, what Moshe taught them. And that's right from the beginning. And when he taught them the Torah, this was a beginning of their learning Torah. So he started learning from Moshe in an Eifel from Ischachet. That was Mamish Nu. They didn't have Torah before. So I say, then will give born and tell this Moshe on Akil. Then they became children of Moshe, not like he gave birth. Because if you teach them a Torah, you make a new Metzias, and that's basically when you never learned before. So he became a new Metzias. So by them it's Kibbur. Hashem call Malambed, and Rashi, from there we know also that anybody who teaches someone Torah was his Kelel Alef on it. That includes even somebody who already learned before. Is Hishre Bekulam, is Ashava Bekulam, Nitme Kili Yolde. What's equal by everybody is Kili Yolde. Elamai, by some, it's more than Kili. In other words, Rashi, anybody you learn, you Kili for sure. Now, Rashi also tells us that what happens if you never learned before, then it's not only, it's Kilo also, but it's more than Kilo. So that's from here we see that by teaching someone Torah, when he didn't learn Torah before, you give birth to him. Das is eir de bir in em sipur anal. That explains the story before. The Tarfum gesehen as bnei achse zan in the Chayei Tzedivre v'onas Torah. The Tarfum saw that his nephews are not Chayei to understand Torah. They saw they were quiet, they didn't learn, they're not Chayei. We bald as they have my Chayei to him, since they're his nephews, they have a connection to him, but they give all to and they say as his own van, Chayei v'onas Torah. So he wanted to make they should be Chayei to learn Torah. He wanted to cause them Yolde. Or Kilo Yoldi. In other words, the Rebbe puts a parenthesis the word Kilo because it's not clear. I don't know if maybe there's more reason whether they Taka never learned before and he was going to really causing them Yolde, or maybe they learned before, but he still would have caused them Kilo Yolde. But he wanted to do that. He wanted to teach them Torah, to give birth to them, to make them into a new Metzias. So when he wanted to wake them up to start learning, so what did he use to do that? He used something that in that thing words that he said, licked this nakuda of adding something to them when they learn Torah. So brought an inyan dugmose, something in Torah, which is Ahiroah, something similar. So he quoted the pasuk, Vayikach Avraham, Vayikach Isha. So first they quoted Vayisav Avraham, Vayikach Isha. Before he said the words Shmo Yechni, but just those words themselves. Avraham added, and he took a wife. Was tachlise is to leave the hemshech taken nochdem vateladle. But the purpose of marrying a wife is to bring Yoldei. He wanted to do that. He wanted to make him Yoldei. He wanted to have this heisofe that you get through the Yoldei. So he quoted the pasuk. Look, Vayikach Avraham, Yosef Avraham. He had this heisofe, Vayikach Isha, and vateladle. So he's telling him, that's what I want. I want to accomplish it. You're not learning. I want to start learning with you. So we should accomplish this heisofe, which will make it Kili Yoldei. So just like over there by Avraham, so he did also a pula, something. That's why the Lashon in Gemara is Posach V'Amar. He opened his mouth and he said, so Ufton in Bnei Achse, to influence, accomplish in his nephews, they should speak Torah. They should learn Torah, speak Torah, and then it'll be Kili Yoldei. So he started something with this type of inyan that there is Vayesef and Vayikach Isha for the Yoldei. So we know why he quoted this posik. So this answers the kasha. Why would he use a posik to wake him up? Because he used a posik that has to do with the inyan that they were saying. This explains why he used the name Yochni. Because he could have used another name, what's Yochni? Should have said Shma Hagar, also different than the posik to wake him up. I'm just thinking now that it seems like I said before, maybe they didn't learn anything at all before. Not so poshet, because we said before that Chumash they knew. Because if they wouldn't even know Chumash, then he could not have said to Shmo Hagar, what do they know? And even without the word Hagar, how do they know that this pasuk says differently? So they knew. So obviously what he's going to accomplish is not the Yoldei Mamish, but the Kiyula Yold, because he wanted to learn with them more. Or maybe they could be more short than you could say, but I'm not interested in saying it. Now the Rabbi says, we'll explain why he called it a Yechni. The Gemara sagt in Seite, Almona Shevovis is from the Maval Elam. But if you have an Almona, a widow, that's Shevovis, that's wild, that's not proper, destroys the world. I think what is what we mean. Again, Yechni Baratibin. There was a woman called Yechni, the boy says she was a magician. When the woman was going to give birth, she was in labor, she would do with kishav, she would do something to stop her rechem, her womb, from opening. When the woman had a lot of pain, she would tell the woman, because the woman didn't know that she's a mechashefa. She would tell the woman, oh, I see you have trouble. The Eibishter, maybe the Eibishter will listen to me. And then she would go take away the kisha. It wasn't an S. She made trouble, so she took away the kisha. But people didn't know that, so she wanted to say that she's causing a nest, that the child should be born. I'll say so. If you're at Tfilah, her Tfilah is made a nest. Yeshleima. So this she was called Yechni. The Rebbe says you could say the Farat Manir Gerufen Yechni. That's what they call her Yechni. Why? The name Yechni weist auf eine von nest. The name Yechni shows a nest. What does Yechni have to do with nest? This is verstandig von dem, what the Gemara sagt in Brochus. It's understood. The Gemara in Brochus. You see the word Hune in your dream. That's the simon that you have a nest. Why? Because Hune has a nun. And nun is a Reshetayvus from that slab. Miracle of miracles lab. So the same thing here also. Yechni is like Yechanan. So it doesn't have the two nuns, but like upon him, it has a shaychas to nes, because it has, first of all, it's similar to Yechanan, but besides it, even has one nun. The word Yechni has a connection to having children. Besides that, there it was connected to a miracle that has to do with children, that she made it sound as if there's a miracle if they're having children. Besides that, it says in Vayishlach that Yaakov said that to Esau, these are the children that the Eibishter gave me, but he used the word Chonan, which is like Yechni, so it has to do with children. So we see here that the word Yechni has to do with Nes, in having children. The father to Tarfon gesagt, Shmo Yechni. That's why he said the name Yechni. He was trying to accomplish to make him start learning, which make him Kilo Yolde. He wanted to through learning Torah and in Torah. So he used Posik and Torah, and in the Posik he changed the name to show that we're talking here about giving birth. He wanted to do something to change the person, which is not natural, like we said before. Let's say he suffered. He wanted to fail that. So therefore, we use the name Yechni because Yechni fits to that Inyan. It's to the Inyan of having children with their Echnes, which is a Hisofe in the normal way. This is in the Hemshech HaSipur. This explains also what says further. As after his nephews said to him, it says Ktura, not Yechni. He called them Bnei Ktura. What does that mean? Why did they call them Bnei Ktura? Because just happened to ask that it says Ktura. The Rebbe explains. Ei Ktura Ksiv. He told them, they said, how could you say Yechni? Which Yechni represents the ness of giving birth. They said Ktura Ksiv. What does Ktura mean? Ktura is Loshen Kshira, we said before, tying. But it could be two opposite. Over there, by Ktura here, it's tying. She tied herself not to go to anybody else. It could be Kshira, could be Eitzeres Rachmon. By this Yechni woman there, she also tied. She did Kishiv to tie the womb of the woman. The opposite of to open up the womb. So he said to them, you're saying, so what do? If you claim Ktura the way you claimed it says Ktura, instead of Yechni, so you're trying to say, no, it's not Yechni. Yechni means to give birth, like I said before. Ktura means not that. What does Ktura mean tied? In which way did they seem to be, according to the Pshat we said before? That means that there will not be the Helode. Through Limud HaTorah, the Psichas HaMeichen, they open the mind of learning Torah. Because if they'll stay that way. He's telling if you stay that way, you'll stay Ktura, you'll stay Kshira, you'll be tied. A stuffed head. So this all, the connection to this to before is that all is talking about Dinyan of Yisofer. But then the Rebbe says, like, Bir analysis, if involved in Vayesav Avram, what he said before the story of Tarfon. Going back to the Bir, he said before, that what did he say before? As Avram, as Vibald Avram, since Avram had to make a Hisofer, which is Heilode, changing. Because durch Mahapach sein from Gimel Klippes at Meis L'Gdusha to change from Klippe to Gdusha, from the Gimel Klippes to Gdusha. But muss früher sein der Vayesav Avram. That's what the Rebbe explained before. He had to have Vayesav. He had to have a Hisofer V'ilu Madregas Avram. Avram had to reach a higher Madrega to be able to have the Keach of transforming Klippe to Gdusha. So we'd explain Al Pichsidis why the Tarfon, when he wanted to wake them up to say a posik twisted, not the way it says, he started with the beginning of the posik. He said to them, "Vayosef Avram, vayikach isha shmo Yechni." He could have started with the second part. Why did he start the first part of the posik? He could have just said, "Vayikach isha shmo Yechni." Und sie wollten gewusst, welchen posik meant, and they would already know which posik it means. Weil das ist der einzige posik, was steht der Loshe vayikach isha shmo. It's the only posik in the Torah where it says the Loshe vayikach isha shmo. And like I said before, obviously the Chumash they knew. So L'chura, he didn't have to start with it. And every word that counts, if the Gemara quotes it, it's not what he said. It's the Gemara quotes a simon that's negated to the Teichon that he's trying to bring out. So the Rebbe says, Kadei lo kena nufton, the Malamed is ben chavei Torah. In order for him to accomplish this, that we said, if you teach him Torah, you make him into Kiliyolde, you make a Ischachas. And by them, by teaching them Torah would be a Helode. His chachas, but the gemus meisiv zayin zay madrege. In that story, Gufa, what the Tarfon wanted to do, he wanted, as we said before, to bring him to Torah, to make them new mitzias. So he had to reach a higher madrege where he could accomplish this. So he had to elevate in his madrege, was the keach zeh can ruft on the elod of his chachas by bnei achsei, that he should be able to accomplish a his chachas chadosha by bnei achsei. Even if it's not mamash ischachas, could be it's only kilo yolde, but still it's ischachas. But it's not mamish the same there, but it's also ischachas. So like just like by Avram, he said had to be by Yosef Avram. He had to reach a higher madrege to accomplish. He also had to reach a higher madrege. And dem hat gebracht a Reihe von Aninin Dugmos in Posik and Teire. So to show that you need a ischachas, to be a ischachas, you need a hisofer. So he brought a Reihe from a Posik and Teire. He started off by saying by Yosef Avram. Und durch dem Vayikach Isha. That because there was Vayesef Avram, that's what made him Vayikach Isha, and he gave birth, which is the Ischachas. The Isofe, in Madregas Avram, had gebracht as Kennen Vayikach Isha. Because he became Vahisof, in addition, into higher Madrega, that's what made it should be Vayikach Isha. Which Vayikach Isha means, Shatachlisu Kem Shavapasha Vateladle. Vayikach Isha is in order to give birth, that's the Tachlis. Aninya from Eilode Vizchachas Canal. That's Eilode. So that's why Arfan also quoted. So now we know the whole pasuk al Pechsidah. Vayesav Avram, he had a Yisofer. Vayikach Isha B'Meili was able to have an Isha which was to give birth. Ushma Ktura, Ushma Yechni. I mean Yechni because represents this new thing. Because Yechni was the one that showed that it came to Derech Nes. Okay, she was lying. In the truth, it wasn't Derech Nes, but what she was doing was trying to prove Derech Nes, and that's what she did, and that's why he called me. Another pshat that Rebbe says, you could explain why he called them B'nai Keturah. So before he said B'nai Keturah, he's trying to say, if you stay the way you are, Keturah Ksiv, you're going to be verstoppt the cup, you're going to have Keturah, you'll be tied. Another pshat. Rama passes B'nai Keturah, Shem Zarish Al-Rom Achel B'Mila. Rama says B'nai Keturah, the family of Keturah, the descendants of Keturah, which is children of Avram, have to do Milah. Because Hashem told Avram, you and your descendants will have to do Milah. But says durch Vayesef Avram Vayikach Isha Shmo Keturah, that through Avram adding and taking a wife, her name was Keturah, was his ainya from Yischach Shalei Peseder Ishtalshken also. We said before that this tells you that it was Keturah. He did made her do tshuva as a Yischach that Vayesef Avram, and he brought all this in order to change Knipik Kedush, etc. Like I said before. So through that, the Uvgiton is Ozaim B'nei Keturah, und sie seine Mechuyev Mila. Because he married her, now he had children with her. So he made that there should be children from Keturah and they should be mechuyev in Milah. What's Milah is Rosh Tevis Mi Yalon Hashemayim. Says in Tereir, Milah is an abbreviation of Mi Yalon Hashemayim. Who could go up Shemayim? Shaseve Atevus Havaya. The last letters make up the Shem Havaya, which means that his hecher from Chines Atayr and Shem Havaya. Milah is higher than Teirah. It says Mi Yalon Hashemayim. That Milah goes up very high, and it's higher than Shem Havaya. Das heißt, Hecher von Seder Ishtalsheles. Mila is higher than Seder Ishtal. Und das kommt durch Maltem Soils of Afkamin and Tshuva comes through circumcising the order of your heart, which is Tshuva. And Tshuva Taka is connected to the high Madrig higher than Ishtalsheles. So this is Pshat in Rambam that Nektura have to do Mila because it's connected to what Avram Avinu did to her. He used this Madrig of Mila Mishalshes that he reached, and that made that they should be Chayei b'Mila. Das meint Korah Leib B'nai Keturah. This means when he called them B'nai Keturah, the Tarf not Keira Mamshel, and Keira doesn't mean only called. Just like when you call somebody, you make them come. So it's not just called them by name, but he called them. Like the Alter Rebbe says, Keira B'Teira. Keira B'Teira means not only you're reading the Teira, you're calling the Teira, you're Mamshel the Teira. So here also, he was Keira Mamshel given in Zay Deminya from Heilode, in Limad Teira, Shalei HaPeseder Shalshes. He called them B'nai Keturah before he said Keturah by them the Cheson, that they're going to have Hashtop the Kep if they stay that way. Now the Rebbe Taich is a positive word. He called them B'nai Keturah, says now you are like B'nai Keturah, which means now I'm causing in you, that's what I'm trying to cause, you should start learning Torah. And if you start learning Torah, you'll be connected to the higher Nishtalshelis, which is the union of Milah, which is connected to Keturah. Al der the pull of Navrom in B'nai Keturah, just like Avram caused the B'nai Keturah that they should be Chayei b'Milah, because he connects them to the Ma'alim Ishtalshelis, so too he causes in them that they should be called B'nai Keturah. They should connect themselves to the Ma'alim Ishtalshelis through learning Torah, starting a new Metzias, which is Mahapach, Klipet Kedusha, etc., etc. Okay. See you in Mir Hashem next time.